Welcome to this video about teaching kids about how to develop really good money skills by giving them allowance. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Lanning. I am a certified financial planner, and I run my own independent registered investment advisory firm based out of San Francisco. And we do financial planning for clients. And this is absolutely one of my favorite topics of all time. I often don't get to talk about this very much anymore just because a lot of my clients don't have little kids at home. And by little kids, I mean 0 to 12 years old. I think all of the concepts here work for teenagers, and I think they work for college kids. I mean, you've got to modify them a little bit. I think there's some very specific things about younger kids that I think you want to teach while they're little, but again, the concepts would work for older children. So just to get us started, here's some ground rules for today and for this webinar. First of all, no coulda, woulda, shouldas. We don't do any of those in my office. I get that we all should have bought Apple at $2. Some of us actually did, but most of us did not, and we are not going to lament that decision not to buy Apple at $2. You start where you are, you create what works for you. You optimize what you have. Okay. Same thing here with allowance. No beating yourself up for not getting started. Start where you are, create what works for you. You get to make the rules here. Another ground rule for today is that remember that some of the issues that are going to come up in this process are not about money, right? They're about parenting, which adds a level of complexity. I get it. You're going to make millions of decisions for your kids as you raise them. And you probably have another parent that you have to coordinate all of this with. But really, some issues are not about money. And more than anything, what I want you to do is to have fun with this. As tedious as it was to put together this allowance system for my kids and to teach other people about it, I really had a lot of fun doing it. And so I would just really encourage you to do the same. Because this really can be a fun thing. This particular presentation, I want to make sure that I give credit to my friend, Catherine Amenta. She is the one that really taught me a lot of this stuff. I have then implemented it myself, and so I'm now working really from personal experience. But she was really phenomenal. She is what I call a money therapist or a financial counselor, somebody who helps people create spending plans and stay accountable to them, and she's really phenomenal. And then I also just want to honor my two kids, Logan and Hannah. I am doing this video in January of 2025. They are now almost, 23 years old and 20 years old. And I have to tell you that, again, as tedious as it was to put this program together and make it work for them, I actually think it served them very well. And they actually reflect that back to me now, which is highly satisfying as a parent. And they're great with their money. Let's start here. I think this is an important piece. I know it feels a little woo-woo, but I want you to spend a minute on this. I would encourage you to close your eyes. And I want you to think about a memory from childhood that is so clear to you like it was yesterday. Yet when you relay this memory to somebody who was actually there, they don't remember it in the same way at all. And it's what I call the how could you not memory. Like, how could you not remember it this way? How could you not remember that dad said this or mom said that or we were in this car? Like, how could you not remember? I want you to find that memory for yourself. I want you to think about it for a second. And what I want you to take away from this memory is this particular perspective, context, view, however you want to phrase it. This may be hard to swallow, but I want you to know that you really have no idea what your kids are learning until they reflect it back to you. And learning is often circuitous. What you learn in one go round, you don't learn the same in the next go round or the next go round. And then you kind of put everything together in like the fourth or fifth iteration. And so our memories are not very good as humans. They just aren't. They're particularly terrible as children. And how you remember something or what you gleaned from something is often put together over a period of years. Okay, so my point being is that your kids are having an experience now that you think you are controlling and know what's going on. And I just want you to be open to the idea that perhaps you don't know what they're learning and you don't know what's going on over there. Okay, your kids are their own people. You've probably learned that by now, but who knows what they're actually learning. And the reason why this is important is because as you create an allowance program for your kids, you want to give them as much direct experience as they can possibly get because that is actually what's going to teach them. Okay. The reason that you're putting together an allowance plan is because number one, it teaches kid what money is and how it moves through the world. And through this program, it teaches them to save, it teaches them to spend, and it teaches them to donate. And I believe that if you have money, then you have some responsibility in the world to make it a better place. So I do have that particular philosophical bent. But this will teach them how to save no matter what, spend no matter what, and then if you want, how to donate. This is an important tenet of the whole program. Your kids are getting an allowance. They are getting money because they are part of the household. And people, clients, whoever I'm talking to about this will go, whoa, wait a minute. I want to give them money because they did their chores, because I want to teach them that work, means they get money. And if they don't do the work, they don't get the money. No, I really dislike that premise. They get money because they are part of the household. And by the way, they do chores because they are part of the household. This is part of the gig. Now, they can earn more for extra chores. So I have a colleague who doesn't give their kids an allowance unless they create value in the household. He happens to be an entrepreneur. I'm also an entrepreneur. His idea is that he wants his kids to learn that they should be adding value to the world, and that is how they get paid. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, I actually completely agree with that. But I think that as your kids are growing up, it's just not something that they can really grasp because no prefrontal cortex. So I don't like that idea. But if they want to earn more money, like they're motivated because there's something that they want to buy, then they can earn more for extra chores because they are actually adding extra value to the household that they can now get paid for. Okay. But they get an allowance because there's money coming into the household and they're part of the household, and they do chores because there are chores that need to get done around the house and they are part of the household. They want to do extra, that's fine. People ask me, okay, when do I get started? I think you should start giving your kids an allowance when they start to connect the dots between, we went to the store, we picked out some things to buy, mom or dad or somebody did something, handed over money, paid by check. Not that anybody does that anymore, paid by credit card. There was clearly a transaction at the cash register, and we were able to come home with this stuff. As soon as they connect those dots, I can pick out something in the store, I can walk up to the cash register, I can do a thing and leave the store with this object. That's when you should start an allowance. And that usually happens somewhere around 4 or 5 years old. And people will say, well, okay, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. The 5-year-old gets it, the 3-year-old doesn't. What do I do? This is a parenting decision. You can go ahead and give the 5-year-old an allowance and not do the 3-year-old. But I would encourage you to go ahead and start it for the 3-year-old. Like, allowance is now starting for everybody. I don't think you should do it for a 1-year-old. I think that's a little silly. But the 3-year-old will watch a 5-year-old and look, you know your kids. You're their parent. So you can make some decisions about what you want this to look like. But I would start somewhere around 4 to 5 years old. And I would do this consistently until they turn 18. That's when I cut off the allowance. I strongly encourage you to give them their allowance every week on the same day. This is the part that's challenging. So what I did when I was doing this is I actually set up envelopes, right? I wrote the date. So they had envelopes they had to open. I had the date on this. I then put them all in a box, and all I had to, and I would set these up about 6 months in advance. Very luckily, my kids are about 5 months apart in age. And so I would, on every birthday, reset and do all these envelopes. Yes, it's a pain in the butt, but I would set up all ththese envelopes. I'd put them in a box. And then on 9/16, I'd pull out 2 of them, one to one kid, one to the other. And then on 9/23, I'd do it again. And on, 9/30, I would do it again. And so that's just how I did it. And it was a couple of times a year when I had to focus on this and do it, but then it was kind of handled for the rest of the year. Here's a big secret. Grandparents love this stuff. So if you can get the envelopes and get the money in the right denominations, then you can set a grandparent down to fill all these envelopes, and they will love it. They love it. So if you can get your parents to help you with this, they don't have to donate the money or the envelopes. Like, you can get all the stuff to set it up, but they will love filling these things out and sealing them up and writing the kid's name or the dates on them. Like, they will love this. So definitely employ your parents in making this happen. You want to give your kids $1 per year old every week. So a 5-year-old should get $5. A 4-year-old gets $4. A 3-year-old gets $3. A 10-year-old gets $10. And in your minds, I know what's happening. You're thinking, you want me to give my 10-year-old $10 a week, like $40 a month to spend? And the answer to that is yes, I do. Kids, as they get older, their toys get more expensive, just like yours have. And giving them more money gives them more opportunities to manage it. Okay. You are then going to set up required allocations. So this is what I did in my house. Again, this your life, you're the parents, you get to make these decisions on your own. But I did 20% had to go into savings, 10% had to go into donation, and the rest of it could go into spending. So to say that again, 20% into saving, 10% into donation, and the rest, 70%, could go towards spending. And here is where another layer of this logistics gets a little dicey, is that you want in the envelopes to have the right denominations so that your kids can sort out 20%, 10%, 30%. Okay, this is really important. Now, little kids can't do that math. You're going to have to do it for them. And early on, they're not going to be able to know a quarter is 25 cents and a dime is 10 cents. I get all of that. They will progress. They will learn this. And working with them is a great way to learn math and money. But you want to give them actual physical experience of doing this. You want them to touch the dollars. You want them to touch the coins, make them wash their hands afterwards. But you want them to actually physically touch money. This is incredibly important for little kids at age 1 to about 12. Their brains can't quite grasp $5 on a gift card. They don't really quite get it, but they will get touching money, coins, paper money coins. Like, they will get that. It is worthwhile to do this. I get it's a pain, but having this all done, again, do big chunks of it ahead of time, and just be able to hand envelopes and then work with them on distributing it to the various sections, totally worth it. Totally worth it. Okay, you then want marked containers for them. So when I did this early on, I found these super cute plastic pigs, like a piggy bank. And it actually had the 4 sections to it. I think one of them was for spend, one of them was for save, one of them was for donate, and one was for invest. And I didn't really separate for my kids saving from investing, because I just really felt that little kids couldn't get their heads around that. And what I really want was good money management skills. And I was going to allow the investing to come later. And we can talk about that another time. Right now, I really want to stay focused on allowance. But so I bought these cute pigs. And then, boy, trying to get the dollar bills into that slot on the top and get them out of the bottom, by opening the little thing at the bottom and let the money come out. Oh my gosh. Pigs lasted about 6 months. And I was like, we're done with the pigs, because it was just too difficult. And so what I ultimately ended up buying was plastic containers with lids, and I just put labels on them that said save, spend, donate. And so then they could just open up the lids and they could just allocate the money to those various containers. And that worked way, way better. And so you can make a decision about what you want to do in terms of these containers, but that's what I would tell you to do. So I would get away from the pigs. I get they're very cute, and I would do very plain containers because they're quite easy. Again, they must handle the money. It's so important that they handle money. You can make deposits into savings accounts. I'm actually okay with that. And you can make donations. I'm actually okay with that. What I generally did when I was working with my kids around all of this is we would go to Target or wherever we were going, and they would know. I would have them count what their money was in their spend, so they would know how much they could spend. And we would go to Target. I would actually buy the stuff, and then when we got home, I would actually get out the receipt, show it to them, circle what they bought, calculate the sales tax. That's a really great lesson, sales tax. And that I would have them physically touch their money and pay me back. And the reason I did that, again, you want your kids to have direct physical experience with money. So they have this feeling of, oh, I saved money and now I'm giving it away. I'm spending it. I'm giving it to somebody else to get something. Super, super important lesson. Again, the direct experience, let that do all the teaching. Now, you can have rules if you want about what can and cannot get purchased. So I had a couple rules. One of mine was no candy and no guns. And by that, I mean, I didn't want my kids going down the candy aisle and buying candy. I just didn't want them doing that. And I didn't want them buying Nerf guns or play guns. That was just a rule that I had in my house. I didn't want candy and I didn't want guns. After that, they could pretty much buy whatever they wanted. Here's what they learn in this process. What things cost. They learn things like quality over quantity. They learn things about sales taxes, and they learn things about delayed gratification. These are super, super important things for them to learn. It builds resilience and confidence around money. It allows them to make mistakes and survive them. And, there might be a lot of drama. There is going to be drama. Let me just tell you, there is going to be drama in this process. Drama in this case is good. It's just good. It allows them to learn so much. So they are going to learn these things as long as you allow the process to happen. And this is more often than not where this whole thing falls apart. So here are the hard parts of this. I mean, besides getting the money and going to the bank and getting the right denominations and getting the envelopes and putting it together and then making sure every week you give it to the kids, like there's a logistical challenge. I get it. You're probably working, trying to make life work, planning vacations, all that kind of stuff. And, they got to have dinner again tonight. But I promise you it's totally worth it. Here's actually what I think is the hardest part. Number one, no loans from anybody at any time. Brother can't borrow from sister, sister can't borrow from sister, no loans from anybody. Everybody gets their own money. Everybody learns to save. Everybody spends what they have. No, I'll give you $30 this week and you can pay me out of your allowance over the next 6 weeks. None of that. You've got to delay the gratification. Super important. This is, I think, the hardest part, honestly. No coaching, no comments. So it is very easy when you're standing there in the Target and they are, because this happened to me, eyeballing yet another stuffed animal. And they're going to buy yet another stuffed animal. It is your job as the parent in this moment to bite your tongue. This is their money. They get to spend it however they want within your rules. Again, mine were no guns, no candy. They want another stuffed animal, fine, another stuffed animal. But you keep that expression off your face and you just let them do things. Now, it is going to be tempting to say something like, honey, don't you think you already have enough stuffed animals? No, just like no, you have to resist, bite your tongue. Or it's going to be really tempting to say, wow, that stuffed animal is $10. You could buy something over here for $6. No, that is interfering with the learning process. I get that this will be hard. And you're going to have a kid that's going to look at you and go, should I buy this stuffed animal for $10 or should I get that thing over there for $6? And it's your job not to influence that decision. You can say all kinds of things to help elicit from them what their thinking is. This is actually a really good idea. I don't know, honey. What do you think? I don't know, honey. What's got your attention? I don't know, honey. What do you think is going to bring you more joy? I don't know, honey. What do you think about this decision and how are you thinking about it? I mean, you'll learn so much from your kids. And as they go from little to big and the conversations evolve, it is so fun. It's just so fun to watch your kids grow, watch their brains, put their little synapses together. I mean, you have kids, you know how this is. Now you're just doing it around money, okay? So really avoid the coaching, the comments, the, oh my God, really another stuffed animal, or, the expressions on your face or whatever it might be. Like sometimes I actually had to leave the aisle and just let them do their thing because it was all I could do, right? And your kids are going to buy ridiculous things. They just are. And just let them. Another rule is no bailouts, okay? If you are going to allow your child to take a wallet into Target with $20 in it or $2 in it, doesn't matter, and they drop it and they lose it and it's gone, you are not to replace it. If they buy a toy and it breaks within 5 minutes of you getting home, you are not to take it back and return it and get them another one or replace the one that they got. So important to let the consequence do the teaching. Kids are notorious for buying things and playing with them incessantly for 2 days and then never touching that toy ever again. Let them have that experience. Oh, I spent my money on this thing. I enjoyed it for just a little bit of time, and now I wish I had bought something else. Let them have the discomfort of those kinds of feelings. Disappointment is a huge one. Let them have it. They will not die, I promise you. And it will teach them so much about what a cheap toy looks like, what a good expenditure looks like, delaying gratification, that really crappy things sometimes happen. Like all of these things are such great money experiences. And I want you to think about your life. I want you to think the last time somebody paid your parking ticket for you, right? Most of the time we don't get bailed out from those things. When was the last time somebody paid a penalty for you? Like most of the time we don't get bailed out of those things. This is the kind of thing that you're teaching, to be mindful about what you're doing through your life around money. So valuable. And the last thing I will tell you is no sudden rule changes. I think this is the wrong thing to do. Get to the store and say, oh yeah, you can't buy guns, you can't buy candy, and you can't buy any more stuffed animals. And they are discovering this the day they've walked into Target, when you know, or don't know even, that they've had their mindset on getting another stuffed animal. No sudden rule changes. You can make rule changes, but I would encourage you to make them separate from any kind of expenditure. Make sure you understand why you're making this rule and then implement it from there going forward. Nothing retroactive, and make sure the rule makes sense and they can understand it. I don't really know what that rule would be. Maybe you want to decide, okay, 20% to donate, 30% to save, and 50% for spend. Or you want to go backwards. You know, you started out at 20, 20, 60, and now you want to go down to 10, 20, 70. Like, I guess you could do that. I would encourage you not to. I would have you have them work within the confines of the rules. Look, we have rules in our lives all over the place. Learning to make the best of what you've got within the context of those rules is a really good life skill. And that's what you're teaching here. So it's going to be hard. Your kid is going to scream. Your kid might have a fit in the middle of Target about how they don't have enough money to buy that thing that they really, really want. They might have a fit when they get home and they've broken their toy. They might have a fit when they've lost their wallet and their $5. Like, these are going to be very painful things to watch. There's nothing wrong with empathy. Empathy is good, and you've got your own life experiences to draw upon. So, yeah, honey, this really sucks. I know when I lost $100 on the street and I was planning on spending that on a gift for myself, and it was just gone and it felt like crap. Never forgotten it. You're allowed to have empathy, right? I know how this sucks when you buy something and it breaks and you thought it was going to last forever and it didn't. Like, ugh, I know it made me so sad when that happened to me. Like, just validating their feelings, like these classic parenting things, that's what's going to happen with this. It is going to be really easy to think, well, I have plenty of money in the bank. I'll just go fix this with money. Just don't. That's not what the purpose of an allowance is, and it's not what's really going to teach your kids the skills that you really want them to have. So here's the keys to success with this. 1, keep it consistent. You've got to be consistent. Here's your money every week. Look, I was guilty of like missing 6 weeks in a row and getting out 6 envelopes at a time. My little kid just really couldn't focus long enough to do 6 envelopes at one point in time, and I ended up doing them. Like, I get there's going to be places where you're going to fall down on this, but to the best of your ability, be consistent. I think that's what's going to lead to the most success. Keep it age appropriate. So how you talk to a 10-year-old is going to be different than how you talk to a 5-year-old. You've probably already figured that out. There's a difference between 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds. So keep it as age appropriate as you can. Talking to your kid about a 401k as your savings plan is just going to go way over their heads. Okay. They're not going to get it. But saying something like, yeah, I put 20% of my savings into an account every time I get a paycheck so that I have money for later on when I'm not working. Like, those kinds of things are good to say. And you're teaching your kid all of the habits that you're doing probably at this point, very rotely because you just have good money, what I call good money hygiene or good money habits. And my guess is that that's what you want to pass down to your kids. I want you also to watch how you talk about money and how you phrase money conversations. This exercise should be just as much about your learning as theirs. So here's what I mean by that. You're driving home from school, you've picked up your kids, they're in the back, you're in the front, you're on your way home, and they say, "What's for dinner?" And you said, "I am making chicken and broccoli." And they say, "We want pizza. Please feed us pizza." And you often will think something like this: "We can't afford pizza." That language is actually most likely inaccurate. You can totally afford pizza, but that is not how you choose to spend your money. So that is a better way to put this, right? Mommy, I want to go to Disneyland this year. Why are we going to grandma's? Because I'm choosing to save my money for another time when we can go to Disneyland, and I'm choosing to go to grandma's, and that's where we're going to go this year. So I think, rather than we can't afford it. Now, it might be a reality that you can't afford it, but again, this is a reflection more of my client base than anything else. But most of my clients, they could liquidate money out of their 401k, pay the penalties and the taxes, and they could go to Disneyland. It's not how they choose to spend their money. It's not what they choose to do with their money. It's not their money habits and hygiene. So I want you to just be mindful about that. Where are you conveying scarcity mindset? Where are you conveying impulsivity? Where are you conveying reprioritization on the spot about how you're spending your money? Like I just be very mindful about how you're phrasing things to your kids, because they are most likely how things were phrased to you when you were little that are probably also stuck with you. So what do you want your kids to learn? As I was mentioning before, you want to use questions to learn how your kids are thinking about things. You can always have conversations about money. I think it's really smart. Use questions to teach them to think. So how do you think you'll feel when you get this home? How do you want to think about this decision? What kind of things should go into making this decision? Like all of those things I think are really great teaching tools around money. And here's the last key to success is keep your cool. You got to keep your cool. Parenting's hard. It's just hard and it's relentless. And you've had a full day and now you're at Target. The kids are tired. They haven't had dinner. They want to spend some money. They're taking forever. And all you want to do is hurry them through this decision so you can get home, make dinner, be done with your day, and put your feet up and watch a little junk television. And they start to have a fit. It's your job in that moment to breathe and to keep your cool. Because remember, you are trying to teach your kids about money. And it might be in that moment that the best response is, honey, I am exhausted. I need to get home to fix dinner and move on with our evening. How about if we come back here tomorrow? I'd be happy to do that after soccer practice or whatever it is, right? Keeping your cool is going to be super important. When the kids get older, so as my kids, were 12 and older, there were things that I had them do. And so I would have them help with the family banking. And by that, I would mean I would actually let my kids take my ATM card and go to the ATM and get money out. And more importantly, I would have them do deposits. That stuff doesn't really happen so much anymore because everything's done on our phones, but I would let them do a deposit on the phone. They need to understand that you don't just walk up to any ATM machine and pull out cash and start spending it, because they will say that to you. Well, mommy, just go to that machine over there and get some money so we can spend some money at Target, or just go to that machine so we can go to Disneyland. You want them to learn you put money in order to get the money out. So let them start to learn that stuff. I would let them start to travel with money and make their own purchases. They actually hand the cash over to the person at the cash register. Once they're old enough to keep track of things and do that transaction, I would have them do it. Nobody balances a checkbook anymore. I do. I've been doing it ever since I had my first job at 15. And I actually don't do it now. I pay somebody to do it, but I balance my checkbook. So much easier now. But having them learn, because somewhere around the age, I'm not an educator, so you're going to have to decide this with your own kids. But I think once they get older and into high school, they can't understand. I have X amount of dollars in the bank. I have X amount of dollars on this card in order to make my own purchases. And you can get them these cards that have become quite popular. I think Chase Bank does them. I don't even remember what they're called, but they allow you to put allowance onto a card, and then allows the kids to go out and spend off of that card, and they can have an app on their phone that shows them what the balance is. I have all kinds of opinions about phones. I'm not going to go into that here, but if you want to do this, you can do it. so that you can have them understand money going in, money going out, and the conceptual piece around a $5 in numerals equates with $5 of bills, right? They'll start to make that connection and you can start to use banking tools to do it. As they start making their own money, so they get a job in high school, the allocations should change. Whereas they're making money in part-time jobs in, let's say, high school, you want to change the allocation on the allowance because now they got this extra spending money. And I would do something like, 10% in donate, 40% in save, and 50% in spend. And when we did that, the conversations I would then have are, okay, this 40% that you're now saving is going to be yours when you go off to college, and it will be your spending money when you get there. And so it was now a conversation about college, and, oh yeah, I'm not going to live in my parents' house forever. And oh yeah, it might be nice to have some extra savings. Like there's all kinds of things that you can talk about, but definitely let them have their ATM card, let them have their own account. We're actually in a time where money, savings account actually have interest now, so they can watch their money grow. You start to teach them about investments. And then over time, you're going to also teach them credit card management. I personally was a little shocked when I went to when my kids were 18, we went into the bank and I had these accounts for them. And I wanted them to have them. Like, here's all the money in these accounts that you've been saving all these years. Here, it's yours. And the woman behind the counter who was setting all this up for my daughter, is the conversation I remember, but it happened with my son too, looked at my kid and said, not do you want a credit card, but when do you want your credit card? And my jaw just about hit the floor. Like, I thought, in my worldview of this, I was going to have to put, $500 down on a secured credit card. And that was going to have to be how they, develop their credit history. And that's what I thought was going to happen. Oh no. Someone's like, do you want your credit card now? So I'll just give you one. And they both got credit cards. So now we had to have a conversation about, okay, you put money, you buy something with this credit card, you need to pay it off. There's deadlines to be mindful of. If you don't pay it off, you end up racking up interest. And what does that mean? And what happens if you don't pay it on time? Like, there's a whole thing about credit cards, and it's probably going to come up faster than you expect. And I'm always shocked when kids start to college, and then the first week, there's all those tables set up around the big community area with credit card companies handing out credit cards and not really teaching these kids how to use them. And then they go out and they run $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of credit card debt, sometimes in their freshman year. So teaching kids about this sooner rather than later, and now it's high school, I think is wise. Let me just reiterate the big, fat, huge benefits of doing this, because I know we've covered a lot. Seems like a lot. Oh my God, I'm going to have to add this to my life. Do I really want to do this? Let me talk to you about big, fat, huge benefits. Number one, and I always love this, saying no in the store. Mommy, can I have? No. Can we do this? No. And my kids, would repeat the question, well, how come? Well, why not? I just kept going, no, no, no. And pretty soon my kids learned that once I said no, I was clear. I had said no and it was done. So my kids actually never had these fits that you see kids having at the checkout line because mom has said no to that bag of M&Ms. Because when I said no, my kids knew I meant it. And I could say things like, you have your money. If you want to spend it on that thing, you can spend it on that thing. Or if they would say, can I have this? I could say something like, well, you're getting an allowance next week. Save up your money and you'll probably have enough to go ahead and buy that thing. So we were able to have those conversations in a very non-emotional, matter of fact, this is how money works kind of way. And hugely beneficial. I never had big fights with my kids in the store. They learn things about penalties and fines and tolls very early on. Nobody's paying those for you, and nobody's going to pay it for them. And the very best thing that came out of this is that my kid now had money. So if you want to start a swear jar where they have to contribute to it if they swear, or you want to charge a penalty for being delayed, that was my favorite one. So I would, I hate being late for school. I have a work life to get to. And so I would just simply announce in the house with my kids somewhere upstairs in their bedrooms doing God only knows what. And I would go, I am getting in the car. For every minute that you are beyond 7 o'clock, I am charging you $1 per minute. And I would say, I'm going to make some money today. And I'd walk downstairs and I'd get in the car and I would just wait. And I can't tell you how many times within 30 seconds my kids were in that car because they don't want to pay $1 per minute after 7 o'clock. They want their money. And so it became a really great way for me to enforce rules, chores, whatever it was, by having a penalty system. A friend of mine said, yeah, I've got a quarter economy in my house. And I went, a quarter economy? Like, what's that? Oh, I take quarters away all the time. You did that, give me a quarter. Oh, you did that, give me a quarter. Like, oh, you did that, here, I'll give you a quarter. Like, she had this quarter economy. I thought that was so cute. But it's huge leverage. It's just huge leverage. Talk about also another big benefit, big fat, huge benefit. My kids are very discerning shoppers. They can tell crap from quality. They know a cheap Target Tory when they see it, and they became very discerning shoppers. And that has continued to be true to this day. Both of my kids like to spend money on clothes, and both of them do it very economically. They wait for sales. They look online, they thrift, they just do all kinds of things around clothes. And I get that thrifting is kind of cool now for that particular generation, but I am convinced they would not have learned it otherwise if they didn't have some really good money habits. You also get priority management out of this. They will prioritize what they want to spend their money on. You will prioritize how you're going to get them to the store to spend it. There's just a lot of ease of life that gets created around money management as well. The conversations that you have alone will be phenomenal. And again, you're learning as much about them and what they're learning as you are learning about you and what you have learned. So you have these great conversations around donating money, that there are people in need, that, a couple extra bucks actually makes a really big difference in their lives. Savings and delayed gratification, having money for later, and how am I saving money, and where is that money, and how is it going to support me when I'm no longer working for a paycheck? Like, really, really phenomenal conversations. And really the best conversations are around spending. And that really comes from this phrase of, I am choosing not to spend my money in that way at this time. And so your kids start to learn that too. Yeah, I have the money. I could do that if I wanted, but I choose not to spend my money in that way at this time. And so those conversations, frankly, were my favorite. Creating language around money decisions, also super important. Watching where your scarcity mindset might be coming in, or your impulsivity is coming in, like all of that stuff. Again, this is as much about your kids as it is about you. And just these phenomenal money management skills that will now follow your kids forever because they learned it directly. They didn't learn it from some lecture from you, because let me tell you what, your parents lectured you and you did not grok those lectures in the moment that you get them. You might now as an adult appreciate all those lectures because you understand what your parents were saying. But I promise you, as a kid, you probably didn't learn anything from that lecture in that moment, and you didn't learn it until way later. So implement an allowance. Don't rob your kids. There's a great story that a mentor of mine would tell about how when he would get on an airplane, if he didn't want to talk about what he did for a living, financial planner colleague, he said, I would just tell people that I sell life insurance. And a lot of financial planners sell life insurance. And so he would just say, well, I sell life insurance. And that would usually shut people up. Well, apparently he did this on a flight. He was tired, didn't really want to have a conversation with the stranger next door. And, the guy says, what do you do for a living? He says, I sell life insurance. And the guy doesn't shut up. The guy says, oh, well, my kids are going to be fine. I have plenty of life insurance. When I die, they're going to get all kinds of money. And my financial planner colleague looked at him and said, well, have you taught them the skills that they need in order to manage that kind of money? Have they learned your money habits? And the guy said, I don't know. I don't think so. And my colleague friend said, then you've actually robbed them. So don't rob your kids. Let the consequences do the teaching. Let them screw up when the stakes are low. It is far better for them to lose $30 than for them to get a brand new car 20, 30 years from now and lose $30,000 because they've done something stupid, right? Let them screw up when the stakes are really low. Give them the skills they need to manage money and expose them as best you can to many different money philosophies. I mean, they're going to have probably 2 or 3 adults in their lives, parents, teachers, who knows, uncles, aunts, grandparents, that are probably going to try to teach your kids about money too. So let them be exposed to that. they're going to have their own direct experience and they can integrate all of that into what they've already learned. Don't rob your kids. These are the questions that I usually get. Here are my answers. Number one is my kids get an enormous amount of money from grandparents at Christmas time. How should I allocate those family gifts? This is really up to you. It's a parenting decision. I would actually have conversations with my kids about this. Would you like to save some of this money, or would you like to go ahead and go to Target and go spend it all? I'm using Target metaphorically, by the way. Nothing wrong with buying things on Amazon and doing it that way, or going to a local store that you can actually support a local person. Totally fine too. But what you do with family gifts, birthday gifts, Hanukkah gifts, that is really up to you. Should I buy out my kids' gift cards? So kids often get gift cards. Here's a $20 gift card from Target. Here's a $20 gift card for ice cream, whatever it is. Should I buy out gift cards? I personally bought them out if I wanted them. So I could spend money, $20 at Target on things I need. So sure, I'll buy out that gift card for $20. I actually have a tax preparer friend who would not do that. He would buy them at a discount. He would say, oh, you have a $20 Target gift card? I'll give you $18 for it. I think there's a lot to be said for doing that. I just didn't. So that, again, that's really up to you. What happens when they start making money? Like I said, I think you change the allocations on retirement, allow them to spend their earned money as they wish, but encourage them to think about, do I want to donate this money? Do I want to save this money? Do I want to spend this money? At one point, my older kid was working a job and making so much money, he really didn't need his allowance anymore. So we did 10% donate and 90% save. And I just stuck it all in this account. And when he turned 18, I gave it to him. So you can do whatever you want at that point. I get questions about whether or not to incentivize more saving. Again, I think this is a parenting decision. I think it changes when your kids are finally going to be making more money. I think that there is some advantage to teaching kids to save money so that they just aren't spending quite so much. We're such a consumer-driven society. There's nothing wrong with teaching kids to save more, but I think you're going to learn what to do about that as you're working with your kids around allowance. You're going to figure out, okay, yeah, maybe we should let them save more. I wouldn't do less than 20% on saving, though. I think 20% is a really solid number. I get a question about, well, should I give advice to a kid when they ask? If I'm in the Target and they want to know whether or not they should buy a toy, should I give them advice? And I would really, really encourage you not to. There's nothing wrong with bringing up the past. Well, when you bought that toy last time, you were not really very happy about it. So do you really want another one of those? Like, I think there's some judgment in that, but it also just allows them to think it through. Or you can say something like, I seem to say you bought something just like this. Why is it that you're wanting another one? Right? Like those kinds of things are okay, but to say, no, don't buy that toy, or yeah, I think you should buy that toy. Like, I would not do that. Should they have their own bank accounts? So yes, I would set up bank accounts for each of your kids, tie it to your accounts at whatever institution you're using. I highly recommend that you not have more than $5,000 in that account at as much as possible. Once they turn age of majority, which I believe in California is 18, that money becomes theirs and they can really access it and do whatever they want with it. Now, they've got to find a way to access it. I get all that. And by 18, I would like to believe that they would have access to it. But I would encourage you to get bank accounts, show it to them. Like, I think my kids were kind of blown away when they realized they had saved $100 when they were little, or they were really blown away when, they turned 18 and they had thousands of dollars in that account. So I think that's really worth it. And now that accounts are actually paying money, I mean, it's not much on $1,000, but to have them see that they're getting money without having to earn it, and actually the money is earning it for them, phenomenal lesson. So yes, get them their own bank accounts. Should I give my kids money for grades? Like if my kid gets an A, they get $5. If they get a B, they get $4, like that kind of a thing. This is really a parenting decision. I'll just share with you my philosophy on it. You can do what you want. People often think, well, my kid's job is to go to school and to do well. And so if they do well, then I want to go ahead and compensate them for that, right? So that they start to see school as a job. I just don't see school as a job. And I think it really encourages the wrong behaviors. It encourages cheating. That's usually the obvious one. Let me see what I can do to get this A. I think kids have a tendency to choose less intellectual rigor. Let me take that really easy class because I can get an A, even though I might really love that class over there, but I've heard it's really hard. So that, I don't like that either. It just encourages all the wrong behaviors and it doesn't teach kids to love learning. And given this day and age and the rise of AI and as fast as the world is moving these days, I think teaching kids to love learning is so important. It is so easy to cheat now. It just blows me away. But teaching kids to genuinely be intellectually curious and to love learning is something that's going to serve them for their lifetimes. And so I didn't compensate my kids for grades. And I know lots of parents who have, and it's not fatal. It's all fine. It works out. But I just personally would not do it. Okay, that's the conclusion of this particular presentation. I hope that you got a lot out of it. You are more than welcome to reach out to me with questions or send me your pictures of your envelopes and your boxes. And I love getting those. It makes me super happy. If you're a grandparent watching this, I strongly encourage you to get your kids to start an allowance for your grandkids and let them know that you're willing to help with this. I think that's a really generous offer to do that, whether you're contributing the money or you're just contributing the time to make it happen. And just, again, I want to go back to this point. Have fun with this. Really have fun with this. It's going to be a pain in the butt sometimes. I totally get that. And I just had such a great time raising my kids and just learning more about them. The last thing I will say about success in this program is that there are kids with learning differences, right? And it feels so common these days that kids really are challenged with ADHD and a variety of other just mental challenges in terms of learning. There is nothing wrong with conforming this program to your particular child's abilities as long as you're keeping some basic things in place, letting the consequences do the teaching. That's a big one. And teaching them how to be good thinkers around money. So your kid might be all over the place and unable to focus and unable to put money into 3 different sections of donate, save, and spend. Like that might be really challenging, but you can absolutely get it done in a way that is age appropriate and learning difference appropriate, whatever it is. And you're the parents of these kids. You'll know what is the right thing to do and what isn't. Okay, that concludes my program. Please reach out if you have any questions and have fun doing your allowance. I'm Jessica Lanning. Lanning Does Planning.